Hey, what's up, Sober Living family? This is Alika. This is another episode of Recovery Talk. But today's episode gonna be slightly different, in a way. I got my friend Beth will be here. Beth Bowen be joining me, and she's gonna be, kind of telling her story. There's a lot of things we're gonna be talking about, and she doesn't have this, the majority of people that follow me, that I follow, we have this traditional bottom that we hit. Her story is a lot more interesting, but I see her waving at me, so I'm gonna get her in here right now, and we're gonna get the show going. Hey, hey,
Hi.
how's it going, Beth?
Good. How are you doing?
All right, awesome, awesome. Yeah, so good to kind of meet you, I guess you could say.
I know. It's so good to put a face to a name.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Man, hey, that was crazy though. This morning I seen on your story that it snows in Austin, Texas. I
It's
had no
snowing in
idea.
Austin, Texas. I'm looking out my window right now, and there are probably 6 inches of snow. It's so wild.
Wow, that is crazy.
I know.
I'm originally from Hawaii, and on
Yeah.
the Big Island, we have a mountain. It's called Mauna Kea, and it's
Mhm.
actually the only place on the planet that we actually have snow, and we got the beach. There's snow up there on Mauna Kea.
Wow.
So as kids, what we would do, our parents would take us up to the mountain. We would shovel the back of the truck full of snow, and then we'd go to the beach and have a snow fight.
Ah,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, my poor kids don't have mittens, and so we had to put wool socks on their hands.
Oh yeah, yeah,
We
that's
get
what we
snow like
did.
once a year.
Yeah, that's what we did. We have to put socks on our hands. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it was great.
it worked.
Yeah, yeah, but I was so excited, man, for today. I've been following you for a while, and like I just love the content you're putting out.
Thank
And
you.
I'll read all your stuff, and it's just so like it just captures my attention because I'm sober too, and
Yeah.
like that stuff is like medicine for me. It's like it's so good. I started like recently. I've been telling so much people that, man, you guys gotta follow like so much women. I get so
Mhm.
much encouragement from on social media, especially on Instagram. I mean, you guys rock, man. It's amazing. And there's a lot of different questions I want to ask you and everything, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that. But some people may not know you, so you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Beth Bowen. Like Alika said, I live outside of Austin, Texas.
Mhm.
I have two sons, Will and Max, so they're 2 and 6. So I know Alika just has a 4-month-old kid. So we were talking about
Yeah.
the other day. I have a background in clinical social work. So I kind of
Mhm.
came from the mental health field and kind of
Yeah.
from this recovery field, but on the professional side. And had all that training before I ever had my own issues with alcohol. So it's been really interesting to kind of put all the pieces together.
Mhm.
But I have been sharing about my sobriety for about a year. I have been sober since September 29th, 2017.
All right.
So just a little over 3 years. And kind of came to that place when my son was 2 years old. I had gotten to a place where I was really relying on alcohol as a way to mask a lot of the problems that I was going through as a
Mhm.
new mother.
Mhm.
And I've since then spoken to a lot of women who have experienced the same thing, just this lack of support that young mothers have, and this whole new life change that can kind of rock your world sometimes.
Mhm.
Really became a time where I started leaning on alcohol as a way to relax, to reward
Yeah.
myself from a long day, and to kind of come down. And before I knew it, it became something that I was doing every day, and
Mhm.
something where my use was increasing quite a bit. It really started affecting my mental health and my
Mhm.
self-worth, and starting to affect my physical health. So that is about the time I decided to leave it behind, and that was
Mhm.
about 3 years ago.
All right, that's awesome, man. It's so encouraging for me to hear because I know I've watched a bunch of videos you post, your stories, pictures, and your captions and what it says, and I mean it's so powerful, man. It
Mhm.
really is, because you don't have that traditional bottom like
Right.
me. I was like bottoming it out, I
Yeah.
was still going. And like for me personally, it just amazes me that somebody like you went, oh wait, like I should probably stop. You know what I mean, kind of thing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, it definitely took probably a couple years of feeling like I didn't have a healthy relationship with alcohol. And then
Mhm.
once I started seeing the use accelerate, and
Mhm.
it seeing how it was really starting to show up in my life, that's when I cut it out. But I mean, I say that I left it behind, but it definitely was a trial period. I read like Sober Lit, Quit Lit. I read the blogs and I read Holly Whitaker's work for probably 8 months before I decided to make the change.
Oh, okay, so you did your research first.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did a lot of research. I did all of the research.
Yeah, and how old were you when you started drinking?
I did not really drink in high school. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a goody two shoes. I was in the marching band. I was a kind of
Uh-huh.
a nerd, and my circle just never really partied. And so I didn't start drinking until I was in college. And I would say that I had a pretty normal college experience. I from the beginning, I always felt like I had a tendency to drink more than other people, and maybe I was more there to like not just have a glass of wine. Like I was there to get drunk. So I
Sure.
never felt like I had like a super steady relationship with alcohol. But it wasn't until I was in my mid 20s and you know, I talk about not having a rock bottom because I did most of my drinking on the couch. I just was the wine mom who would drink 2 bottles of wine on the couch and I didn't go anywhere. So, you know, there wasn't a DUI or there wasn't anything like that. But that use really started escalating when I was in my mid 20s, right after I'd had my first son.
Yeah, you know, I used to do the same thing. Like I remember this is years ago. I remember I would just absolutely love and like just anticipation of this was just better than getting drunk. It was like on my days off. This was back when Netflix wasn't online. It was just
Yeah.
DVDs in the mail.
Yeah.
And I would stay home and watch movies all day, and I would just drink. And vodka was my drink, and I would just drink. And like, if it's comedies, I'm cracking up. If it's dramas, I'm crying. If it's action movies, I'm cheering. You know, like I'm getting all into it. But it started really affecting me mentally. It started to affect relationships I had, and but that really wasn't like because you know, in Hawaii, alcohol is part of the culture.
Yeah.
It really is, and see, it's not really frowned upon, and honestly, I don't know if it would have been any different for me if it kind of was frowned upon.
Yeah.
But you know, you can start drinking at a young age, well before you're 21. You know, and it's not like anybody gonna correct you or scold you because you know they was doing it from a young age too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's like you said, I mostly just drank on the couch, but I love, you know, drinking by myself because that's when I could drink as much as I wanted to. And, you know, I feel like it's hard to put any context to what brought me to having an issue with drinking because I didn't have like a family history. I didn't grow up drinking. I didn't start at a young age. But for me, it was really based on a lot of mental health. So at the time that I was really starting to escalate my use, I was also dealing with undiagnosed postpartum depression after the birth of my first son. And looking back, I can see that. But at the time, I had no context for it. It was not diagnosed. My OB hadn't given me a diagnosis or anything. But once I was able to step away from it, I could see that, you know, I was super isolated. I didn't have family nearby. I didn't have a lot of support. My husband worked a lot of hours. So I was masking this. And of course, as we know, alcohol use can worsen mental health. So for me, it was like this vicious cycle of I was trying to fix this postpartum depression by using alcohol, and then it was making it worse and giving me anxiety. And it has been a really interesting path for me to try to figure out where this comes from and what kind of started it all. But I've really come to learn, like, since then I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and episodic depression. I don't have kind of prolonged depression, but I've really learned that that's the root of it for me, the mental health piece and the kind of self-medicating of the mental health was kind of my entry point to having a more difficult relationship with alcohol.
And then, so how long did it last, the drinking?
I mean, so I started probably drinking around 20 and I quit. I was 27 when I finally quit alcohol. I'm 31 right now, so I'm trying to do the math on that. I was like 27 or 28. And, you know, I feel really thankful for being an early exiter. There's some people that call like those of us who quit in their 20s early exiters, like we're taking the off ramp from this now. And I feel really thankful that I was able to find the tools and figure out how to remove alcohol from my life, because I have no doubt that had I kept drinking, I would have had a rock bottom. I would have had some sort of consequence, whether it's in a relationship or legal or things like that, because my use was just really increasing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, people like you, like my hat is off to you guys, man, who took that exit ramp, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what it was for me, but I just like, I really wanted to just see how far I can go before I die, and then I'll stop, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to just push my mental health to the limit, my
Mm.
physical body. I remember this was maybe 2015. I had to, what I did was increase my life insurance policy.
Yeah.
So when you increase your policy, they got to come back, take your blood pressure, draw your
Right.
blood. And the guy asked me, "Do you want your like results back of this?" And I was like, I never did say yes, but that time I said yes.
Mm.
So I got it. I got it to me like a week later, and like a lot of parts of like those, it's like a whole thing of a body, and it shows all the areas where it's really not good. And my liver was the worst one out of them all. It was like bright red, and
Mm.
I was only like maybe 27, 28 at this
Yeah.
time, something like that. Or maybe I was almost 30. I forget exactly how old I was. But like stuff like that, it wasn't sufficient enough for me to be like, man, I gotta do something. I think for me, the majority of what stopped me from seeking out help, because if I did like what you did and try to like Google, okay, how to stop drinking, how to
Mhm.
stop using and stuff, that's already me admitting I got a problem, but I didn't want to because I had so much pride. I was like, no. And like this disease of addiction had all these lines of defenses to protect
Yeah.
it from me. And the
Right.
first one was pride. And then if I never got through that, but I suspect the ones after that would have been shame, it would have
Mm.
been guilt, it would have been
Mhm.
condemnation. There's no way I would have been busting through all these walls,
Right.
all by myself. And naturally, I'm an introvert. A lot of people, they don't believe me really,
Me too.
but naturally, oh really? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like naturally, I'm an introvert, so I love to isolate. I already love to do that by myself, play video games, stay home, watch movies and stuff like that. As a kid and growing up, that was just me. Like in Hawaii, we're very social, so when we go to like family gatherings and parties, like man, we get a pack. If we don't go over and say hi to all the aunties, the uncles, cousins, man, my mom is like pack. We're like, oh, okay, 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 But because I'm introverted, I'm not trying to be all, hey, hi everybody, I'm like, I'll make my food, go sit by myself, So this disease just very, just pinned me in a corner, and
Mhm.
I willingly stayed there. I was like, oh yeah, I love this, I can just
Yeah.
drink all by myself, and I would have to plan that. Like my girlfriend at the time, I'll wait till she goes to work, and then
Yeah.
bam, I bust out the bottle, and then I tried. Okay, she'll be home in 1 hour. I gotta sober up. I gotta sober up.
Right.
And then my life was just like that. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm waving back to everybody.
Yeah, you're good. No, I'm so bad about keeping up with the comments. Hello, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, and also, can you talk about? You are one of the hosts for 1,000 Hours Dry,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that 42-week challenge and everything. You want to explain what that is? A lot of people that follow me, they
Yeah.
may not know.
Yeah. So my ethos around not drinking is.
Uh-oh.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, I'm back. Okay.
Yes, I can hear
Um,
you.
my ethos around not drinking is you and I have talked that we have kind of a different approach, and for me, the disease model didn't really fit with my spirit. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it in any other way. It didn't align for me, and it was something that it was like if that was my only choice, I don't know if I would have been able to remove alcohol. And
Right.
I kind of stumbled into this corner of the internet of folks who have chosen to remove alcohol from their lives, who come from all sorts of different paths, and maybe doing it for like the health reasons, or doing it
Mm-hmm.
for the social reasons, whatever the reason is, they have chosen to remove alcohol. And so that is when I got plugged into the 1,000 Hours Dry group. So our kind of ethos at 1,000 Hours
Mm-hmm.
Dry is more of a challenge. So we have
Mm-hmm.
Dry January going on right now, so
Yeah.
it's
Uh-huh.
more of an invitation for people stepping into an alcohol-free life, whether it's for now or forever, with this 1,000 Hours Dry challenge. So we say 1,000 hours, that's about
Yeah.
42 days.
Yeah.
And so what we really focus, all of the hosts there at 1,000 Hours Dry, we are all sober.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are like, we're in it for the long haul. And
Uh-huh.
so what we try to do with that page is more of the education piece, because I have found that, well, at least in my personal experience, when I was using alcohol, I had no understanding of of the physical repercussions of alcohol, because it's so ingrained in our society and it's so normalized with our culture that I didn't do my research before I started drinking. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how it impacts your mental health, your physical health, your sleep, all of these pieces. And so that was the big turning point for me, specifically the brain science of it. Once I understood the brain science of it, I was like, I'm done. I'm never touching this again. Because once I understood how it was impacting my mental health, and I understood the mechanisms of it, that was my exit point. So what we focus on in the 1,000 Hours Dry page is just that education piece of how alcohol affects your body, how it affects your mental health, your sleep, and pieces like that. So people come to the page for the challenge, for that 42-day break from alcohol. And we find that many people, after they do that 1,000 Hours Dry, decide to continue staying sober because they realized that this is something that was showing up in their life in a way that they didn't have a lot of understanding of before the challenge, but after the challenge, they were able to see, okay, this really like messes with my mental health, or this really is messing with my sleep, and I don't want to deal with that. Or people like me who go into it and are like, wow, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. So maybe that means I need to step back from it. So that's kind of our ethos over at 1,000 Hours Dry. It's really fun. We're on what's today? Day 10, I believe, of our challenge right now. So we're kind of aligned with the Dry January crew right now.
Yeah, you know, and I follow, I mean, there's tons of 1,000 Hours Dry pages. Like, I don't know how much I follow a bunch of them though. I don't know if I got all of them.
We have regional pages. So we've got like a Texas page and a California page, but we also have some like identifier pages. So we have an LGBTQIA page. We have a Babes page and our Stag page. So we've got a bunch of different satellite pages. I'm on the main page, so it's at 1,000 Hours Dry. But yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, it's just this invitation for folks to try it, because I know how much my life has grown since I've removed alcohol from it. And it's one of those things that so many, like you said, like so many of us have to come to that on our own. Like nobody can tell us, nobody can make us go get sober, or nobody can make us start prioritizing our health. We have to come to it ourselves. So I love the page because I feel like it's folks' invitation into this life.
Yeah, and that's great, and I'm a huge supporter of that, man. I love that stuff. I mean, I'm always seeing Kevin posting a bunch of stuff. You know,
Well,
and,
we all kind of come from different walks of life. We all of the hosts on that page really have a different perspective of it. So I think that's what's really cool about it too, that each of us has kind of a different ethos and a different way we come to being sober, or the way we approach our sobriety, or you know, our stories are all different. So I think it's just a really beautiful page of a vibrant spectrum of folks who don't drink. Yeah.
It is because I've seen, I don't know which ones it's on. Might be Kevin's personal page, or no, it was one of 1,000 Hours Dry. Because I went back and watched your guys' one too. You know, he'll have people on and stuff. Yeah, you know, and it's just what you guys are promoting, man. Like that's what I'm all for. Like even though like I hit this rock bottom, I got sober in a 12-step program. Like I don't care. Like you like people who have suffered a little bit and got out, and people who suffered a lot and got out. Like it's the same thing to me. Like I don't care how somebody got sober. If you can like spread a message that, you know, you can, if you're sober curious, if you have a problem drinking or drugging, and you want to have, you know, reach out and ask for help and get help, like, man, I'm all for that kind of stuff. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, how somebody gets sober. I didn't always think like this though. When I first got sober, I was like full 12-step to the max, you know, and then my mind slowly had to just open and open. Because I'm also a substance abuse counselor, and I remember learning in school that it totally contradicted something I learned that helped me get sober. Like I forgot exactly what it was, but I remember the instructor telling me, or telling the whole class something. I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is what it was. She's like, well, you know, 12-step program might not be, it's probably not for everybody, and this and that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, all they gotta do is do the work, like how I did, and of course they'll get sober. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like I still had that thinking, and I was a couple years sober already at this time. So you know, I still, even to this day, continue working on keeping my mind open, because You know, when it's closed, like it cannot receive anything. Nothing's getting in there. When it's open, ooh, I can receive, I can
Yes.
learn, I can grow. So, you know, I
And
mean,
I
I
feel like
really,
that allows us to take pieces from each other as well. So even if
yeah.
we have different paths, I can take pieces from what helped you get sober, and you can take
Hmm.
pieces from what helped me. And somebody who's on the 1,000 Hours Dry page or on my page, I get DMs every day from women who
Hmm.
are like me, who never saw themselves in any sort of recovery space until they read my story. And
Hmm.
it just helped invite people into this life. And we're at the same goal. We're all at
Uh-huh.
this place where we live this amazing sober life, but we all kind of came to it in different places. And
Hmm.
I'm really passionate about just storytelling. And the more that
Yeah.
we tell our story, the more we invite others into their best selves and whatever life that is, even if it's different than our story. If they can identify a piece of themselves in our
Hmm.
story, that helps them. So I think that's just my kind of ethos of it, is just the more people see themselves in other stories,
Yeah.
the better we all are, because we all
Yes.
reach the same conclusion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, you talked about something that I actually don't talk enough about since I've been sober, and that's sleep.
Yeah.
You know, I would hate it out. You know, I could be passed out drunk, and then like 2 in the morning, I wake up and I cannot go back to sleep.
Yes.
You know, I've been listening to you know, Jill, the sober powered
Yeah, I love Jill.
girl. So I've been listening to her podcast, and she talked about. I was listening to it last night. I honestly cannot repeat everything she said, but I was like, man, that made so much sense of why. And then alcohol wake you up, and like I mean, since I've been sober, I'm having the best sleep of my life, man. Man, it's
Well, and
amazing.
when I came to living alcohol free, my son was 2 and he had just barely started sleeping through the night. So I was trapped in this cycle of using alcohol at the end of my day to come down from the stress of
Uh-huh.
parenting alone. And then I was drinking until 10 or 11, going to sleep drunk, and waking up at 3 a.m. with the baby, feeding the baby.
Uh-huh.
Then he would wake up at 5 in the morning and we'd be up for the day. And I was so deeply sleep deprived at that point that I didn't drive my car places, because during the day I didn't trust myself to drive my car because I was so sleep deprived and I would fall asleep at the wheel. And it wasn't until after I removed the alcohol that I really started learning about the fact that even the sleep that I was getting with a 2-year-old was
Mhm.
trash sleep, that it wasn't that deep sleep. And so that's, once you learn all of these things, it's like people ask me if I'll ever drink again. I'm like, I know too much about this to ever
Yeah,
consider drinking
yeah,
again. I'm like, are you
yeah,
kidding me? No way.
yeah. You know, I follow another page on Instagram, the sober celebrity page, and one day they posted a picture of Tommy Lee. You know, he was a drummer. He was
Yeah.
and he used to drink 2 gallons of vodka a day.
Mm,
I mean, I don't know how he's still alive,
that
honestly.
hurts me.
Yeah, I know. Just thinking that, like, oh man, you know, because that was my drink of choice too. But he commented on his sobriety. He said, you know, well, he don't know if he can do it forever, but right now this is what he's doing. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, I mean, that's amazing that this guy's still alive, man, and drinking
Yeah.
that much for so many years. Woo.
Yeah. That's wild.
You know, there was something else you talked about. I forgot exactly what it was. It was like the diagnosis you said of a certain anxiety and depression. What was that again?
Yeah. And I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which is kind of a generalized anxiety disorder, as the name says. But essentially I manage it with a kind of a holistic approach of a lot of
Uh-huh.
yoga. I do a lot of yoga, but I
Yeah.
also take medication for it. So I take Lexapro, which has really helped me manage my anxiety. And I
Hmm.
really have come to learn that that has been the root of my alcohol use. So even when I was young and even when I was in college, I had a lot of social anxiety, but I also had more anxiety in the rest of my life that wasn't necessarily rooted in anything that was happening in reality. Just this kind of overall impending sense of doom and anxiety, and I feel it in my chest. And so I have come to learn that I was really medicating that anxiety in a lot of ways, and that I was using alcohol as a way to tampen that down.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've kind of stepped back from that, it's given me a lot more perspective. And I see this happening a lot with young mothers as well, especially those who have just given birth, because postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety are very underdiagnosed. So these women are having these children, and that's stressful in itself. And then they have this chemical imbalance in their brains because of the postpartum hormones. And then they are like thrown into this mommy wine culture where everyone drinks wine at baby showers, and that's, you know, they wine, I wine, all of this shit about this culture where it's like super culturally acceptable. And it's just this perfect storm of all of these pieces. And I really have gotten to know so many young mothers, young women who are in the same cycle of maybe trying to mask some sort of problem that they're having, and they're just stressed and they're sleep deprived and they're exhausted and they're dealing with a new baby and maybe lacking support, and wine is just there, and it's part of this mommy wine culture, and it has really been very damaging for a lot of women. And I think a lot of women don't have any sort of it's just so ingrained in our culture that there's no, like, you can't step back from it and you can't have any perspective on it.
So, you know, as you know, my wife just gave birth 4 months ago. Now, in regards to what you're talking about, postpartum depression, is there anything you can tell me that would help, like me, like maybe be there for her or help her, or because, you know, it's very underdiagnosed and things you said. So anything that I can do for her?
I mean, I think I can only speak from my personal experience, but it was just the really high stress levels and feeling like I was doing all of the work and feeling like I didn't have any support. It I don't know, it manifests in so many different ways, but for me, it manifested in a lot of anxiety and a lot of withdrawal. So I would just recommend, if you start seeing signs like that, or overwhelm, or even a short fuse can be one of the signs of depression and anxiety. But also I'm super pro professional help as well. Like I manage my anxiety with medication, and it has been really helpful. And it makes me wonder, had I had that tool in my toolbox when I first had my children, like how my life would have been.
Right. Man, that's awesome. I'm learning so much, man, like, from you.
Well, and it's really interesting because I have this background in my training. I have this clinical therapy background, but there's something so different about walking through it and experiencing it in your own life that gives you such a better perspective than any textbook could. I mean, there's just no way to fully comprehend the scope of it unless you've walked it yourself.
Right, exactly. So, you know, Beth, you're a sober women's mentor. Could you explain a little bit more about what exactly that is?
Yeah, so I work with women after they've removed the alcohol, because what I found in my experience was that removing the alcohol was difficult. It was, I don't want to undervalue the difficulty of that, but all the work that came after that, I didn't expect, and I didn't have any support doing that. So everything out there is about how to quit drinking, but especially for those of us who don't align with the 12 steps necessarily, there's not a lot of support, and there's not a lot of education to fix all of the things that maybe we were using alcohol for. So I realized when I stopped drinking that I had a whole bunch of shit that I wasn't dealing with. And that was all the hard work for me. All of the work that came after removing the alcohol, like working through shame stories, like building nutrition and movement and like a healthful, holistic foundation into my life, and figuring out who I was in this alcohol-free space, whether that was somebody who identified as an alcoholic or somebody who didn't call themselves an alcoholic, and how I spoke about this. And I hid for 2 years. When I first quit drinking, I didn't tell anybody for 2 years. So I found that was really some of the hardest work for me. So that's what I work with women to kind of overcome, is all of the pieces that come when you quit drinking. So you've quit drinking. Now what? Like, what do we do after that? And so that's kind of my ethos. So I use a little bit of my therapeutic background, especially for the shame work, because that's an integral part of what I do, is working through those past shame stories and learning how to process that, both mentally, but also physically, because we do
Mm-hmm.
hold shame in our physical bodies.
Right.
So I work with women to process the old shame and to build shame resilience against future shame, so
Mm-hmm.
that when something happens in the future, rather than internalizing that shame,
Mm-hmm.
we are able to move through it and process it in a more healthful way, because we can build it's a learned skill, is being able to process the shame without internalizing it, without it becoming something that is part of our self-worth. So that's a little bit about how I help women after they quit drinking.
Man, that's awesome, man. Sign me up. Let's go.
I know,
that's
I
so
do just
great.
work with women. I only
Yeah,
work
yeah,
with
no,
women.
no, I know. I'm just kidding. And then you got the powerful AF mentorship. And just so you guys know, a lot of people think AF is as F-bomb,
Yeah.
but it's alcohol free. It stands for,
Or
right?
it is the other one a little bit
Oh,
too.
really? Oh, okay, okay.
Whatever you want to say.
Can you? I know because we spoke earlier before, and you're talking about how you're working on this thing for a while now, huh? And now
Yeah.
you're starting to launch it.
Yeah, I just launched my program this week. So I'm actually working on doing clarity calls right now. So the program is a 12-week program, and I'm capping it at 12 people. So right now I'm in the process of doing clarity calls, where I just hop on a phone call with women to see if it is the right fit for them. But essentially it is kind of what I was just speaking on. It's a 12-week program, and it has 3 different pillars. So the first pillar is that holistic foundation. So working on your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, all of those pieces that give you a good solid foundation, so that when we step into pillar 2, which is the shame piece, you have this holistic foundation to do the hard work. Because if you step into the hard work without any of the initial support and initial foundation, it makes it really hard to do it without burning yourself out. So the second pillar is that shame work, where we process these old shame stories and we step into this new life. And then the third pillar is essentially uncovering your alcohol-free identity. So if you don't align with anything, if you don't necessarily fit in any sort of alcohol-free box, it's a little bit of figuring that out, figuring out your place in that, how you speak about it, and then just how you build in like this joy practice, and how you build in all of the good stuff. So, you and I know that sobriety is amazing, but so many people first quit drinking and they're like, well, okay, now what? So it's building in all the good shit. And so that's number 3. So I'm currently doing clarity calls for that right now. So I would love to talk to anybody who's interested in like that.
My wife keeps commenting and clapping and 100%, man. You should talk to her after this.
She's beautiful. I was stalking your Instagram earlier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my light on real quick. It's getting dark.
Oh yeah, no worries. Oh man, this is awesome.
Sorry, I see the sun setting and it's
Oh yeah. No, hey, so you were saying something, like after people get sober, then now what? And like, like the works, like for me, that's when the work started, it wasn't like all the work is just, okay, I got sober, now I'm sober, and that's it. Like, it's like sobriety gave me a life, like, so I'm here to build a life kind of thing, not to just, okay, I'm gonna just, just exist now, but I'm sober now, you know what I mean? That there's more to it, like internally, for me, there's some spiritual stuff, physical, mental, especially, man. Like I remember that when I was in school, they were showing us pictures of people's brains, like a cocaine user, one of them was, and this guy's like barely had a brain left, and it was only after 3 years. It was just 3 years. I did cocaine for 20 years, it's amazing. Like my brain still works, man. I'm so grateful.
Well, and I just meet so many women who are like, this isn't fun. Like, what's the point? Like, I'm hiding. I don't want to tell anybody that I'm not drinking. I don't want them to think of me in any sort of way. I don't feel like I fit in any sort of box. I don't have any community. So I speak to all these women who just aren't having any fun with it. And I'm like, there's so much more to it. Because I'm with you. Like, not drinking has given me all of the good stuff in my life.
Yeah.
And I just want to help other women step into that and reclaim their power and feel like that they are living their best life and they're living to their highest self in sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right. I'm pumped now. I will definitely hook you up with my wife after this. She's like laughing on this thing that she commented. So funny. But I love my wife, man. She's so supportive of me in my recovery and not drinking. And she never really was a big drinker when I met her. She said she used to be when she was younger and stuff, but but like just Like minus the alcohol, just everything you just said will definitely benefit another woman.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
hope so.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I get into some questions now?
Yep.
More questions. So for you, Beth, what brought you to the decision to quit drinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, the time period in my life where I was when I was this young mother, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to a point where I was in such a vicious cycle with alcohol use and poor sleep and
Mm-hmm.
feeling fairly isolated that it had really started deteriorating my mental health. And I was to the point where I hated myself. Like I didn't like anything about myself. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I acted. I didn't feel like I could trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
We know about the brain science. So we know
Yeah.
now that I had a compromised prefrontal cortex, meaning my
Yes.
decision making and my impulse control was
Mm-hmm.
damaged. But I like couldn't figure out why I was spending money I didn't have, and why I was lying about things and why I was hiding things.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point where I really hated myself, and I had very low self-worth. So that was kind of when I realized I had to change something. And my late night Google, I talk to everyone and they always have a late night Google. It's like you said, once you put it in the Google search, it's real.
Yeah.
But my late night Google was yoga to quit drinking. Because I was like, those yoga people look like they have their shit together. Maybe I can be fixed by doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that introduced me to Holly Whitaker's work. And she works, well, it was called Hip Sobriety at the time, but it's now called Join Tempest. And Tempest has a little bit of a different approach to removing alcohol. It's more of a little bit of a mind, body, spirit. So you heal your body and you build a life that you don't have to escape from anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a light bulb moment for me. That was when I could see something that was a piece of recovery that I identified with and that I
Right.
saw as something that I could see myself doing. So that was a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of my introduction to it. But I really got to the point where my mental health was just really deteriorated.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's see. We you talked a little bit about it, but how do you think the mommy wine culture has influenced how women drink today?
Yeah, I mean, so I bought it hook, line, and sinker. So there's
Mm-hmm.
this culture of mommy wine drinkers where it's, you drink at a play date, you drink at a baby shower, you drink at a book club, and it's really pervasive in this young motherhood culture. So there are t-shirts about it. All of the wine
Yeah.
glasses have like the acrylic words on it that talk about, when they whine, I whine, or mommy needs wine. And it's really interesting to see like my dog's trying to get the door. It's really interesting to see that this didn't exist 20 years ago. Like these mommy needs wine t-shirts didn't exist 20 years ago. It wasn't part of our culture then. And I don't know what genius came up with this idea to market towards young mothers, but it's really worked, and it's really become a part of our lexicon. And like the mommy wine memes, I don't know if like you've seen all the
Yes.
memes, especially in the pandemic. This whole new culture has emerged that glorifies alcohol abuse. Essentially, is what it is. I mean, drinking a whole bottle of wine is alcohol abuse, but it became so we were desensitized to it because it's everywhere. All the memes joke about the wine glass that fits a whole bottle of wine, or the bras that you can pack with wine and hide all of this drinking. And it became something that I bought right into. I thought it was something that everyone was doing, and the idea that we deserved a reward at the end of the day, that our reward could be alcohol, that drinking a glass of wine was a way to come down from a hard day of parenting. I think it has really changed the way that women drink. And I know this because of all the people I talked to who have experienced a similar experience as I did, where it was like, I don't know that I had the most normal relationship to alcohol prior to having my children, but I do know that motherhood escalated it exponentially. That was when it skyrocketed. That's when I had one Christmas where like 80% of the gifts that I got were like branded wine glasses, and like I was the wine mom. That was I really bought into it, and it was so part of my culture, and it was so part of my peer culture, and all of the people that I connected with we're all doing the same thing. And now that I've stepped back from it, and now that I have a little bit of like 100-foot view from it, I can see it as glorifying alcohol abuse. But when I was in it, I had no concept of that. I had no understanding that that was abnormal, that it was suggesting that, like, we drink because of our children. We drink because we're stressed from children. That parenting is so hard that we have to drink to survive it. And I can see how messed up that is now that I'm not part of it. But when I was in it, I just had no concept. And I still see, like, I still see it in my peer group, and I still know people who I could be like, yeah, she's way in it. She's way in this mommy wine culture, and the data supports it. So the data shows that women are drinking exponentially these days, and that it really started increasing like in the early 2000s. And I wish I had the data in front of me right now, but alcohol use disorder among women and addiction among women has skyrocketed in the last decade. And it's hard to know. It's like the chicken or the egg. It's hard to know exactly what the source of that is, but it is also when the meme culture arrived, when memes about things like this became popular, when you started seeing these T-shirts about when they wine, I wine. So I'm not the data scientist, so I don't know if that is where the root of it is, but my personal belief is that big alcoholists started marketing to these young mothers, and they are also like targets, realizing that this is also a group of women they can sell T-shirts to. And it has really changed the way young women drink. And I also, like, the data supports it, but I also know that my DMs support it. The people who show up in my messages every day are like, wow, I thought I was the only one, or like, I thought I had a good relationship with alcohol until I had children, and then things just went off the rails. And it's just, when you can step away from it, you can see how toxic this culture is. But when you're in it, it's like, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was the mom who would share the memes. I was the mom who would buy the T-shirts and the glasses. But I really do think it has changed the way women drink these days.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking about the memes and the T-shirts, I seen a girl wearing one T-shirt once, and it said, we don't bitch, we whine,
Yeah, right.
and that sounds so cool, you know what I
Right.
mean? And it's so normalized today. It's so sad that, these companies, they target like mothers, they target single moms, and it's like so normalized. Like, yeah, no problem, have one glass of wine if your kid's stressing you out. If they're still stressing you out, have some more, and then we start abusing it, and then all of a sudden we got a problem. And like you said, these numbers.
Like, it started as one glass twice a week for me, and then it turned into one glass every night, and then it was 4 glasses every night, and it snowballed before I ever could get a grasp on it. And I think that's it. It's just, it sneaks up on women, and obviously, alcohol is not marketed as an addictive substance, but it is. And so these women think that they are using something that is harmless, and that they are using something that is everyone else is using, and that it's a great way to bring yourself down. Great way to bring yourself down from a stressful day of parenting. And what they're consuming is an addictive substance that their brain is starting to rely on. And I think, I have a lot of unpopular opinions in my ethos about big alcohol and the way it's marketing towards women, but I really do think that this increased alcohol use among women is like the women's health crisis that nobody is talking about.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Now, this next question is, I couldn't wait to speak with a mother about this next topic we're going to talk about. Honestly, I've been waiting this whole time to talk about this specific one now. And that is the Tropicana ad that came out last month. Now, some people may not know. Could you explain what the ad was about, and then your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so the marketing campaign was, I think, hashtag take a moment, MIMO.
Yeah.
I can't spell. Take a moment. It's basically like take a mimosa and take a moment as a break. And it was this marketing campaign where it depicted women, mothers, who were sneaking away to bathrooms or to closets or to garages, and they had wine fridges, but they were concealed as something. So the wine fridge was like a towel rack, or the wine fridge was a hamper, or the wine fridge was a tool shed. And so it was depicting these women sneaking away and hiding from their children and taking a moment and having a mimosa in these concealed wine fridges. And it kind of lit the alcohol-free community on fire.
Oh
Because,
yeah.
I mean, yes, Jess, it was a terrible campaign. And it was very odd because it was a juice company. We're like, okay, we're used to
I
this
know.
kind of stuff from alcohol companies, but from a juice company, like, what's your angle here? But what I think lit everyone up is that so many of us saw ourselves in that campaign, but not in a good way, because so many of us had these deep, deep shame stories of when we hid from our families and from our children to drink alcohol, because we just couldn't take it. We couldn't take the stress of parenting. We just needed to take a moment for ourselves and step away. And what it depicted was this innocent fun, when in truth, so many of us are like, no, I did that and I hated myself when I did it. I hated myself, and I hated the fact that I couldn't stand parenting my children. So I'm going to get like emotional talking about it.
It's
but
okay.
just that, like, I was the mother who would hide in the bathroom with a bubble bath and drink a bottle of wine because I was so stressed out. And I was so, like, I don't want to blame my husband or my family or anything, but I was just under-supported as a young mother. And that's what I did, but that's when I hated myself. And that's not just fun, innocent fun. And so the alcohol-free community kind of went to task about it and created a hashtag called Please Market Responsibly, because the whole please drink responsibly, that is such a messed up victim blaming. Like the concept of drinking an addictive substance responsibly is just so wild. And so we created a hashtag called Please Market Responsibly, because they were marketing something that is very problematic, because she was hiding her drinking. She was concealing it in like a fake wine fridge. She was drinking because she was stressed. She was drinking because of her children. So all of these markers of alcohol abuse were being glorified in this one commercial. And it was really interesting because I feel like the mommy wine drinking trope is overused, and it's, you see it everywhere, but you only see bits and pieces of it. And this ad had every single marker of the mommy wine culture. And so actually, we took Tropicana to task, and Tropicana canceled the campaign. They ended up removing all of the ads. There were several, so it was a bunch of celebrities, but it was also a bunch of like mommy influencers. So they took all of the ads down and they apologized for it. And it's interesting to see the backlash to that too, because everyone has something to say about cancel culture. But for me, it was more of like, people need to know that this is problematic and that this is dangerous, because this is how it starts. And then it becomes something that is so much more damaging. And when it ruins lives, and when it becomes something that goes from just innocent fun to something that's active addiction. And it just is, it ruins lives. So it was really interesting to see both the response from the community, the response from people outside the community, because I had a lot of people that are people who perhaps still drink, but are starting to recognize the toxic nature of the mommy wine culture, and starting to see that it's a con, and that it's this marketing towards women that's toxic and dangerous, even if they themselves still drink in moderation or whatever. So there was a really positive response from people outside of the community as well, at least in my circle. And then to see how quickly Tropicana, honestly, they did a great job of removing it very quickly and acknowledging that it was something that missed the mark. And I think
they were way off the mark.
Way off.
Way off.
The mark is a nice way of saying it. But it was way off. And it just, my hope that the overall takeaway from it is that people that are not necessarily in the alcohol-free community saw a little taste of how messed up this is, and how toxic this is, and that it's not just innocent fun, that it can be something that is more serious for a lot of people.
I know. I remember when this first came out, the huge uproar in the sober community on social media. I mean, oh my goodness, almost like every ad, or not ad, every post I seen was about this. And it was crazy, like especially toward the moms, the sober moms, like I follow a lot of them, and it was just, it was so sad, because like, even though I'm not a mom, I'm a dad though, but like that commercial, Gabrielle Union, like I could identify myself in that, and she's a woman, You know,
Right.
I'm like, dang, I used to do
Well,
that kind
and
of
that's
stuff
the
all the
other
time.
thing. It offends me because they underestimate us. They think that this is all we are and that
Yeah.
we're going to buy into that. And
Yeah.
I think that it's just a drastic underestimation of women. Like, we are really
Hmm.
powerful,
Yeah.
smart people. And to reduce us to this
Hmm.
stereotype, this
Yeah.
trope, I think was a mistake by Tropicana. And I think
Yeah.
they learned
Yeah.
the error of
They
their
paid
way.
for it.
Mhm. Well,
You
and,
know,
and I shared a post during that time that was like a picture of me. I had, nice makeup, nice hair. And I said, this is a woman who used to hide in the bathroom from her children to drink alcohol.
yes.
And what started as innocent fun quickly became something that wasn't innocent fun. Because
Hmm.
I think that there's this misconception of who can be affected by alcohol and who can have addiction and who can get to this point where they have to keep using this substance,
Hmm.
because it can happen to anyone. And I think
Yeah.
it's wrong for people to assume that it's, the homeless person in the street, or it's
Hmm.
the old man sitting on his couch. Like, it can really happen to anyone. And that was
Yes.
our whole drive of this, was just education. Because if you looked at the Take 'em a moment hashtag, it was flooded with women, with mothers who look like
Yeah.
me, who are not your stereotypical picture of a woman who dealt with addiction.
Hmm.
And I think it was really eye-opening for a lot of people outside the community, but I think it was eye-opening, at least I hope, in some way, for the execs at Tropicana or Pepsi,
Yeah.
who owns them.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it was, man. I'm sure it was. You know, there was people posted a comment. I don't know who this lady was. She was definitely a mom,
Mm-hmm.
but she wasn't mean. It was a kind of a little bit of a lengthy comment. People were just
Yeah.
posting that comment that she wrote to Tropicana. I can't remember exactly what she said, but you know, I was talking about marketing responsibly,
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't being mean. She was being
Right.
polite about it. And she said, look, you know, because of the pandemic, maybe you guys should make a commercial
Yeah.
about taking juice to hospitals and things
Yeah.
like that. People who need it, you know, just
Right.
she wasn't like mean to them or nothing, but that's such a good point that she made. Like, why didn't you think of something else that would like benefit and help other people and
Well, and
market that way?
especially in this pandemic, I know I say I can't wait for the data to come out. That's not the right way to say it, but I am interested to see the data in 2020 on the escalation of alcohol use disorder,
Yeah.
because this all of this has just been amplified, and everyone's at home, and everyone's stressed, and everyone's
Hmm.
and the marketing has been crazy to see, the way that alcohol is marketed to people in the pandemic even. And we know that using alcohol reduces our immune system. Like, we don't need
Hmm.
to be reducing our immune system right now,
Yeah,
and we don't need to
right.
be worsening our mental health right now. But it really,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so Tropicana could have gone any other direction in the middle
Yeah.
of a pandemic. It's so wild.
Yeah, whoever that person like who worked in the advertising department that came up with this. Oh man.
Yikes. Yikes.
Yeah. Okay, Beth. So let's see. Sorry, I could talk about this forever.
Yeah, me too.
Um, okay, the next question. So you never hit a traditional bottom. So how did that influence your sobriety?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like, because I came into it from a place of, like, I'm going to hit a rock bottom if I don't stop now. I
Hmm.
feel like it gave me a different perspective than the way that a lot of traditional recovery is based. Because in a way, it, like, I did it 100% for me, because
Yeah.
it wasn't like I have to quit drinking because I have a DUI, like legally I have
Hmm.
to quit drinking. And it
Hmm.
gave me this different foundation that I'm trying to think of my where I'm going with this, but it just,
No.
I think part of what I'm so interested in too is sharing this story, and giving other
Yeah.
people who have maybe not hit a rock bottom a little piece of my story. Because I feel like when somebody else can see themselves in a different person's story, then they are able
Hmm.
to be invited into something. So when I share about being a person who has not had a rock bottom, I get a lot of DMs from people that are like, oh wow, like, I
Yeah.
kind of felt the same way, but I was just going to keep going until it got worse, or until I
Yeah.
had to stop. And I think there's this conception about, like, you have to stop or you have to get sober. And being a person who has not hit a rock bottom, and who did most of my drinking on the couch. I didn't,
Mhm.
I didn't have any sort of legal repercussions or didn't have any sort of like wake up call.
Mhm.
For me, it has just given me this motivation to share this with other people and
Right.
to invite them into a life where they make more healthful choices for themselves and where they have better habits and where they have more adaptive habits in their life without having to necessarily have that rock bottom. And I've found that I just am motivated by trying to help people before they get to that point. And when they're able to see themselves in somebody else, I feel like it gives them that invitation to that. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
looking at my
yeah.
kids. They're out playing in the snow right now. It looks very cool.
Yeah, it's you not having that traditional rock bottom. See, the thing I learned is that some people will die before they hit their bottom. You know what I mean? Like I know people that died due to this addiction,
Yes.
and it's sad, but for somebody like you who kind of it started to affect your mental health, and that was important to you.
Mm-hmm.
You started to you identified with the commercial with the
Mm-hmm.
drinking wine in the tub and the
Yeah.
whole bottle, started doing research. So man, that's amazing. So okay, last question. So your partner still drinks.
Yes.
How do you manage a relationship like that in sobriety?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. That's why it was one of the ones I added, because I feel like so many people go into choosing not to drink and are like, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to manage this? Or is this going to change my relationship in 100 or 360 way? Like, is this going to change everything completely? And for me, it was an invitation to really lean into barrier setting and into having like strict lines of like, we cannot cross this. And that's a hard skill to learn when you are first removing alcohol from your life, or if you are, it's a hard skill to learn as a human being, but when
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
able to set parameters, it really strengthened everything about all of my relationships, because
Mhm.
once I was able to have these barriers and to have these boundaries is the word. I don't mean
Yeah.
barriers, but to have boundaries within my relationship, it really translated into a lot of different, very healthy boundaries in other parts
Mhm.
of the relationship. And for me, my partner, he doesn't drink, but he has a very different approach to alcohol and the way it metabolizes in his physical body and the way
Mhm.
he uses it. And it's one of those things that I really have found that when you're able to have open and clear communication lines, then it's something that you can move forward with, and
Mhm.
have still maintained these relationships even when one person doesn't drink and one person
Yeah.
does. And it applies to friendships as well. And it's, like I said, it's that stepping into these boundaries and learning, like, this is what I can mess with and this is what I can't mess with, and
Mhm.
learning how to communicate those things. It's a learned skill, but it's one of those things that we've talked about, like, removing alcohol is just the tip of the iceberg of all
Yes.
of the personal development change that will happen to
Yes.
you when you quit drinking. And so
Yeah.
it's just been a really interesting experiment in realizing who matters and who's there, like, ride or die for me. Because even outside of my partner, my son's waving at me with his sock mittens. Sorry, it's very distracting. Um, Even outside of my marriage, outside of that, it really has shown me in my life, like, who is there for me and who is not just there to be a drinking buddy.
Right.
And that's something that I really honor as, like, a very difficult thing in the moment. But I think once you are able to get past the initial, like, here's who's staying and here's who's not, it really deepens and strengthens relationships with the ones that have stayed, the ones that are
Yeah.
ride or die. So for me, it's just working through those boundaries and having, like, for me, like, we don't go party. We don't go out and, like, go to a place where everyone's drinking and it's just like a big party and everyone's binge drinking, taking shots. Like, that's a barrier for me. He can sit on a couch and drink a beer and it doesn't trigger me. But if we're,
Mhm.
like, in a place where the only activity is alcohol, then I'm out. That's not
Mhm.
my jam. And even within, like, my marriage, that's something I had to learn how to do. That's something I had to learn how to, like, step into and step up to my voice of being able to say, like, this is it for me. This is where I stop.
Mhm.
And so it's just this, like, forever experimentation of figuring out how to communicate your needs in a way that
Yeah.
still invites the other person to, like, be part of this relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Because when I first met my wife, I agree with what you're saying. Because she wasn't a big drinker. Like she's her whole family isn't. Like they do drink, but like when I first met them, I was thinking, man, that's all you guys drink. Like, man, I used to drink so much, it's crazy. I was crazy though. But she likes to go out dancing. So, we would, in the beginning of our relationship, we would do that, but she still was respected of me and my sobriety. And she would ask me, like you were saying, that communication. Because if I was uncomfortable with something, like I would tell her, if like, oh no, there's a bar with no dancing and everybody's drinking and that's it. Oh, heck no, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
Like, even to this day, I'm not going to do that because that's not my jam anymore. It's like, there's nothing, it doesn't entice me or nothing.
No.
Like, I'll go to Dave and Buster's once in a while to like watch a pay-per-view fight or something.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But I like to thank you again. I know, see, your son is still distracting you out
I
there.
know the little one's here now. It's the little one, the
But
2-year-old. He just found me.
yeah, but hey, Beth, it has been a pleasure and an honor, man. I really, I thank you so much for what you're doing. You're impacting other people's lives. You're helping the sober community. All the mommies out there, you're having a lot of success with. I wish you all the success in the world. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's so much of you women that I follow out there that I gain so much from, so much motivation. Like Emily Lynn Paulson, like all
Yes.
the sober mom squad,
Yeah.
like all of them, like believe it or not, like I follow you guys on, like I'm really engaged in it because that's something that
Yeah.
I like. I mean, a lot of guys too, but like you guys are like, you guys just it's just on fire, and that's attractive to me. I'm like, dang, it's great. I learned so much from you guys. So
Good.
thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else? Any last words you want to say?
No, I just really appreciate you and having me on today. It's been wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye, Alika.
Okay, bye. All right, guys, that was my friend Beth Bowen. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you guys have any questions, you guys can contact me. You guys can contact her too. But like I said, guys, see, this platform I created is to, show other people that recovery is possible. See, Beth was a little bit different story, as you guys seen, which is amazing. It doesn't matter, like she had a problem with alcohol. She never got to the point where I did, but she's pro recovery. I'm pro recovery. I'm pro sobriety. She's pro sobriety, and that's what it's all about: living an alcohol free life, a drug free life. Because, like she just said, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Getting sober. The real work gonna start after that. So if you have a story to tell, please reach out to me. You guys can direct message me here. I have another Instagram geared strictly toward recovery. That's pro_recovery_power. So thank you guys again for watching. Have a good day.